Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention? The presentation is about to begin. Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to this webinar. In this occasion, we would like to have a webinar from IMARET and Relationary. Before we begin, allow me to introduce the presenter. We have Mr. Ammar Abu Zahra. He is the Senior Professional Counselor and Senior Professional Coach. And we also have today with us Ms. Yen Li Chua. She's a clinical psychologist. Both are from Relationary Clinic, giving mental health services to the public. Without further ado, I would like to welcome the first presenter to deliver the presentation. All right, Mr. Ammar, the floor is yours.
Morning, Assalamualaikum. Okay, so I don't know who's out there, how many people there, but I hope you're all doing well. I hope you hear me and see me clearly, because I'll be sharing some slides. And how do I share here? Can you hear? Share screen? Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, so my topic today is going to be about healthy productivity versus unhealthy productivity. And this is mainly focused on our contribution and our presence at work. How can we be producing in a healthy way? And basically the agenda for today is basically comes from the summary of the topic today. We're going to be looking at the working aspects of productivity and the productive behavior in a workplace environment, working from home. Also, how does that work? Is it different from working environment at the workplace? Also, how to adapt better to work life and to respond better to immediate work crises and stressors. And that's basically the agenda for today. These are the 5 agenda, but I would also like to introduce Relationary a little bit, because this is going to help us to lay the foundation, how we see things from Relationary perspective, in order for us to be able to help people when it comes down to happy workplace. So our vision is to focus on family first. Yes, today's talk is about work, but we also focus on family first. So the reason why we go to work is really for ourselves, and for ourselves being part of that family. And the family is part of this society that we're in. So the more successful the family, the more successful the society, and therefore to be strong, to be successful, and to have happy families within the society. And our mission is to be the catalyst network of professionals to bring here, to allow knowledge to reach out to peoples and families out there, to help them uplift and inspire and empower their synergetic members, to ensure consistent development. So the talks here and the talks that that you probably will attend in the future, they need to have some kind of improvement in it, some kind of development in it. So this is a learning that you learn, and therefore this learning will benefit yourself, and therefore you will benefit the family, and therefore you'll be benefiting the society that you are in. I would like to invite everybody to start writing down questions as I go through the information that I want to share with you. And I would like you to take as many notes as possible and ask as many questions as you could possibly imagine that you can do as questions in an hour. So I think my talk is going to be about 40 minutes. We're going to have a good amount of time for questions. So again, our objectives at Relationary is to have connection, to connect people to knowledge, to connect people together, to empower them, to inspire them, to uplift their skills by sharing knowledge, also to enhance the quality of life the well-being, psychologically, mentally, all that good stuff, in addition to um, physically as well as spirituality or spiritually. And also to be a systemic dynamic enrichment to help the individual um, members of the family to also be able to develop. And with our partners globally, we want to be having that this international professional hub to bring in knowledge from different parts of the world to help people from different parts of the world. Relationary has partners, globally, and we also have clients globally. So our approach when we work with one person, with a couple, whether married or about to get married, or they're courting, or they're engaged, or even with a family, or when it comes to work, we look at it from a systemic approach. We have a systemic approach when we look at things. So we look at the person's environment, their family, their learning, their past experiences, their work, their faith, and so forth. So we look at it from a different aspect, and we see how the system is interacting that is causing this person's behavior or emotions to be the way it is, and therefore we try to understand and able to help this person to develop themselves in that system. So a family is a system, the faith is a system, the work is a system, learning and education is a system, and these are cross systems. But all of them actually are a system by themselves. Collectively, and each one of them is a subsystem. And within the family, like for example, same thing with work. Within the work, there are subsystems. Could be an organization, it could be a business unit, it could be anything that is a subsystem from the top organization. Our philosophy is that we strongly believe, and this is how we conduct our um, services, and how we help people. Stable mental well-being leads to healthy relationships as well, and vice versa. And that's what inspired us to come up with the name Relationary, because it is uh, the core, and it's the indicator of good mental health and vice versa. Our values is integrity, teamwork, and awareness. And today's talk is mainly focusing on awareness, and it took us teamwork to come up with all the information that we put here, that we have presented for you. And the information that we are presenting is based on integrity and authenticity. Our team, if you're interested to know about our team, go to relationary.com/relationaries, and you'll see our therapists and coaches at Relationary. So now I'd like to talk about our model. Our model at Relationary is really based on three different things: the core, which is who we are, the behaviors that we do, and the relationships that is within us and external to us. So the core is really made out of mind, body, heart, and spirit. So the mind is where the IQ is, intelligence quotient, and the body is the physical quotient, and then the emotion quotient is the heart, which is EQ, and then the spirit, where there is no such thing across the world, so we are calling it SPQ, which is the spiritual quotient. So, and these are some examples of what goes into these each area. So the mind helps us to set goals, to work on gadgets, to make decisions, and that's basically the IQ, the ability to think and judge and so forth. Our body is basically how we're taking our hydration, our nutrition, sleep, endurance, etc. That's really what our bodies function, and what does it need for us to function. Our heart is our emotions, moods, and thoughts as well. So some people's like thoughts is really mainly in the head or in the mind, but actually thoughts can be in the heart. And you know, I can give examples like, oh, I don't feel it in my heart. My heart is telling me something else. So there are some people can argue that thoughts can come, and intuition really comes from the heart. And spiritually, the spirit, it gives us identity, gives us purpose, it gives us destiny to understand where, our main goal, and as well as intentions. So purpose can be intentions as well. So the purpose and intentions and identity and destiny, these are the things that are really the supportive, the supportive, or the core foundation of us being human beings. So this is how we look at it from Relationary. So regardless of a person's spiritual beliefs, religions, and practices, these are the core things that we give us: identity, purpose, destiny, understanding of what is it going to be afterwards. Now, in terms of behaviors, we have survival traits. So based on our experiences, then we behave in a certain way, and um, um, we tend to think of ourselves being insignificant or significant. So if we feel like we are significant, we're dominating. If we are insignificant, then to survive, we need to please, or we need to basically put the other person in priority. And if we were to blame, so we're blaming others for our faults, or we are just, our existence is really to please other people. So these are the main four ways of how we see ourselves in relationship to other people, and how does that help us or not help us to behave a certain way, positively or negatively. So, in terms of the relationships, we have four types of relationships. This is what we believe at Relationary. So, we believe every person, they have a relationship with themselves, they have a relationship with others, they have a relationship with situation, work, event, so forth, and you have a relationship with the Creator. So, so these relationships are maintained in this pyramid. So sometimes what you find, someone is so focused on themselves, they're ignoring other people, they're ignoring the family, and they're ignoring the situation that maybe the family is not doing well in education, they're not doing good in wealth. I mean, they're maybe not doing well financially, and you're not focusing on their spiritual connection with their Creator. So that is basically not congruent. So the congruent state, which is the stable state, and that's what we desire, is we want people to be in the middle. They can go to any corner of this pyramid, but they are able to always go back to the center. So if there is a need for the other people, they can put themselves as a secondary, and then they focus on the other. But then when that's done, they can go back in the middle and they balance between all. When they are in need for themselves and self-care, they can take care of themselves and they can reduce the attention to others, but not just totally turn it off. So, and the same thing with situation. They cannot focus on money, 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 money for the rest of their lives. They're very likely to lose the people that they are making money for, or they lose themselves in the process. Their integrity, their beliefs, and all that, they can all, by focusing on the situation. But, ability to focus on the situation and go back, focus on the Creator and their needs and the religious practices that we need, and go back in the middle. That is really takes skill. It's not something that we are born with it. Our religion, regardless of the religions, it tells us about what needs to be done. Now, there is some wisdom that is shared on how to do it. In terms of parents, they tell us what to do. Little that we know or little that we learn how to do it. That parents, they tell, it's really funny how parents, spend the first year of the child's birth, to help the child talk and walk. And for the rest of the life of that child, the parents are telling him to sit down and to be quiet. It's really interesting how that dynamic changes over the year. So we tell the parents tell the child to be quiet, but they don't tell them how to express themselves better. Little that we have children that they know from home, that they learned how to express themselves in a more effective way. Same thing with school. School doesn't really teach us how to manage our emotions, how to manage our need of connection, and how to stay in that congruent state. So that's just for you guys to understand the basics when it comes down to congruency. So let's go ahead and start with the talk. So working aspect of productivity. Again, guys, I invite you all to take some questions. I have some attendance here in where I'm giving this talk at Relationary. Any questions in here? Anybody has any questions here? Guess not. All right. So I'll go ahead and move forward. So in terms of working aspect of productivity, it's about really what is productivity, what does it mean to be productive, and what does it need. So productivity is the quantity and the quality of work tasks completed by you within 1 unit of time, and that time can be a day, a week, a month, quarter, a year, whatever the case might be. Can you call him back? Not from here, from the admin phone. Yeah, I'm not able to answer. We just Yeah, it would be great if you call him back. And sorry for that. So within 1 unit of time, it's within. So we complete quantity of work tasks, and and um, and it's done by you and at a certain period of time, and also within an environment. So these are the areas that define what productivity is all about, or these are the elements of productivity. So why is quality important? Well, if there is no quality, then you're going to have to do it again. So you're going to have to do more work, and you're going to fall behind in the work that is already aligned for tomorrow. You're going to fix the problems that it was not done the day before. So quality is very important to help us stay focused on the next task and get it successfully done, and so forth. So that's in the Islamic teaching, is itqan and ihsan. So these are the things, these are the values that we learn from religion, some many religions, and as well as cultures around the world. They teach this, not perfectionistic, but correctiveness, and being professional about it. And authentic. So ihsan is authentic, and itqan is being professional and adequate. So the elements of productivity, we talked about work tasks and time. So if you see here, these are work tasks and time are in blue. You and the environment are in green. Why is that? Because the work task and time are constant. They don't change. The task is always going to be there. It needs to be done. It doesn't change. Now, more tasks can be added, but the task itself doesn't change. It's a constant. And the time is also constant. Now, you and the environment are the variables. So what does that mean? So that means that there's somebody is in control. So when it comes down to these four elements of productivity, who's in control? Who's the boss? It should be you. If you think it's not you, then I invite you to take another look at it, because time is not in control. Time is a constant, just there. The day is there, the month is there, and the task is there also. It has to be done. Now, you and the environment around you are variables that can be controlled by you. You can utilize the time, you can control the task, and you can control the environment, and you can control yourself. So, so in other words, you can be your own boss. Can you give me some water, please? Yeah, some water, please. Water. Sorry about that. My voice is scratchy this morning for some reason. So the reason why we want to, actually, if you don't think that you are in control, I would like to invite you to be in control, because you are the only one who can change yourself. No one can change you. If the environment is out of your control, which is very likely most of the time it's not within our control, unless we have a home, we have, working at home, or the environment that I'm talking about here, like in terms of work, we don't control our work environment. Work environment is pretty much set. We just walk into that work environment, unless you are the boss or you are a decision maker when it comes down to the environment. Then yes, you can control the environment as well. However, if you are an individual contributor or manager, your ability to change, thank you very much, your ability to change that environment is limited. And maybe in many cases, it doesn't even exist. So the only thing that we can control and we are the boss of is us. Because when we are able to control us, we are able to manage and control the environment. We are able to manage and control the time. We are able to manage and control the task. So therefore, in order for us, so if I give an example to that, so if I give an example to that, there's a task, for example, um, to purchase a machine, or to purchase the machine. That's the task. Inside the purchasing, you need to evaluate. You need to check the quotation. You need to compare prices. You need to compare qualifications and specifications and all that. All these things are tasks that are within that big task, is to get that machine, to purchase it. You need to allocate the money. You need to do all these things. So, and if you're able, so the environment is telling you this kind of task takes about 2 weeks, and so therefore they said that. So the environment is telling you the time expectation. They're telling you the budget expectations. They're telling you um, the outcome expectations. They're telling you a lot of things, and they're telling you also the resources that you have within that environment. Um, and so therefore the task is set, the time is constant, the day is a day, but it's the due date is set by that environment that you are working with. Now, how do you control that? You're able to do that. You're able to control that task by negotiating with the person who set that date. It's like, listen, this is a 2 weeks, but this is a new machine. This is a bigger machine than the other machines that were purchased. This is the first time we buy this machine, and therefore, so who's controlling the deadline? You can change the deadline. If you are able to control your emotions and yourself, you'll be able to think rationally, to negotiate a new deadline. You'll be able to change that environment around you, but not necessarily to change it fully, but to change it so you are successful. So the ability to do that, you need to be incongruent. You cannot focus on the fact, on the task only. You need to focus on yourself also, because when that task is given to you to be done in 2 weeks, but it's supposed to take 2 months, what's going to happen? Usually, what happens is the person works overtime, works day and nights. They take their work at home. They impact the family. They impact the children. They impact their friends, their social network, and they are drained after the 2 weeks. And then they celebrate. Yes, we got it done. Now, that's something that I can control. I can talk to my manager. I can reason with them, and so forth. But that's what helps me to be in congruent state. I can focus on the situation, which is the task or the event, but at the same time, I'm working with the manager, so I can balance with myself. To be kind to myself and to be reasonable and fair to myself. And some people add on to that prayers. They can add on prayers for God to make things easier for them. So that's how you congruently manage something like that. So who's in control? You're in control. So then negotiation skills is very important. Building that good relationship with your boss is needed, as a predecessor or prerequisite of you able to even communicate and manage that deadline. So I'll talk more about this shortly, and I will elaborate more, but I just wanted to continue now talking about from a productivity point of view. In order for me to be productive in this task, what does productivity need? So it needs intention. It needs a meaning. What is this really making me to do this job? What is about it that is so meaningful to me? What's the intention behind me coming to work? What's the bigger picture? What am I here for? All these questions are very important. That's what's going to be the driving force to make us focused on the job by understanding the intentions behind going to that job. Is it only money? Is it about helping people? Is it about helping my colleagues? Is it about helping the society? Is it about finding solutions and making life easier for people? What is it that makes it so meaningful to go to that job? So, in order for intentions, meaning of what you're doing on an everyday basis, they need to be refreshed. They need to be fresh every day. They need to be renewed. Not renewed meaning like in having a change. No, 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 no. Renewed meaning renewed in our mind, renewed in our hearts, renewed in our souls. That this meaning is exactly why I do this job. This is why I am in this field of career or learning or education or whatever it is that you chose to be in. So that intention, that meaning, is the most important thing that we need in order for us to be productive. And this need to be fresh at all times. So we make it fresh by renewing it. Renewing it meaning that's basically saying it again and again, saying the same thing and again and again. I'm doing this for the sake of God, sake of Allah. I'm doing this for the sake of helping people. I'm doing this for the sake of me because this is my passion. I'm doing this for this, for that, because of this, because of that. These are the things that we really need to make sure that they're always fresh in our heart and souls. Now, in terms of the how, it really depends, and I'll talk more about that soon in the later slides, but it really depends on a few things that we will discover shortly, and I'll talk more about that. So what else does productivity need? It needs engagement. Productivity I cannot have the intention without me being engaged. I cannot have the intention to do good to people and make things easier and find solutions to make people's lives easier without me being engaged, right? So therefore, my engagement, I am included in this transaction. It's not just good intentions or meaning, but it also requires me to be engaged. So I cannot go to work, just do the job without my heart is in it, without me feeling that I am engaged, not just doing the job, but actually engaged in the actual tasks or objectives that are needed from work. So the engagement is fueled by intentions. So if there are intentions, the engagement are much more meaningful and much stronger and much more fruitful. So the engagement comes after intentions. So if the intentions are wishy-washy or not clear, the engagement is wishy-washy or not clear. Or the engagement is for different purposes that are not even discovered by yourself. You do things subconsciously for reasons that you don't even know why. It's like, why you're liking the job? I don't know. It just gives, I mean, how many times I get that answer? What do you like about your job? I don't know. I just, I've been doing it for a while. Got used to it. But these are passive answers. If your heart is not in it, you're not engaged, and maybe the intentions are not they're not fresh, they're not renewed regularly. So we go to the next item for today's talk, which is the productive behavior in your workspace or workplace environment. So what do I need to do to keep my productivity high? So that's like the things that we need to have in order to keep our productivity high. So we said the intentions and we said the engagement. Now, with those in mind, the need to learn. We have to learn skills and attain these skills and then improve these skills. So in order for us to engage, we need to learn the engagement skills. We need to attain these engagement skills, we keep them around, and improve them. We don't want to lose them and because if we lose them, actually, if we don't practice them, we lose them. If you don't practice anything, you will actually lose that knowledge. So once you learn it, you need to attain it by practicing it, and then when you practice it, you'll figure out how to improve it. So that's in general for all skills. So to help us engage, We have the clear intention and the meaning of what we're doing. We have the engagement, so we learn. So that learning is going to help us to be implementing the skills that we learn and improve it. Now, what are the types of skills? There are mainly three types of skills: functional skills, interpersonal skills, and intrapersonal skills. So functional skills, I'll talk more about this. So the functional skills is job specific, and there are productivity skills. So job specific skills like a mechanic, an engineer, doctor, nurse, there are specific skills that are needed for that job. You can learn this from practice, you can learn this from another person, you can learn it from school, you can learn it from academic or whatever the case might be. And there's the productivity skills. How can I be productive? So these are the specific skills that I do on a daily basis in order for me to maintain my intention and my engagement ongoing. So I'll start with the intrapersonal skills, which is really the skills within ourselves. So in order for me to work with others, I need to know myself before I need to know others. Because we mainly focus on the people and the job. What does the job need? What is it? But little that we know about ourselves. So we need to spend time and understand our emotional, the EQ, our IQ, our PQ, and PS and SPQ. So these are all needed for us to understand what we can do and what is our ability within inside us. And honestly, I mean, just knowing myself and knowing people around me and my family, we don't spend time to figure out who we are. We just hear people what they say about us most of the time, and this is what we believe who we are. But actually, if we dig deep, in many cases you'll find that you are much, 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 much more stronger and much more capable of than what people see in you. And that gives us the strength and confidence to keep moving on. So the interpersonal, from a term of the spiritual quotient, is the ability to elevate oneself positively by enabling our spirituality to lead us with hope, gratitude, humor, appreciation, of beauties, as well as the appreciation of the beauties and the creations around us. So when we are at work, we face these difficulties, but we are elevating ourselves above the work. What is it really all about? What are we here doing? And that's the intention and the purpose and the meaning. So by looking at things spiritually, it elevates our levels from the daily activities. So we have a higher perception gives us a bigger what you call it? I forget the word. Horizon. It gives us a bigger horizon. So the higher we see ourselves, the higher we elevate ourselves, the horizon is much bigger. The shorter we get and the deeper we are into this task, the shorter the horizon, and it's going to be really, really cluttered and so tight that we are not able to breathe sometimes. And that's stress. We'll talk more about that. So the IQ, wisdom, and justice. So in order for us to have wisdom, you need to be able to love learning. You need to be able to have good judgment. You need to be able to have the ability to be creative, to have the ability to be curiosity. You're curious to know things, to learn things. And if you were to develop wisdom, just bear with me here for a second. I'm just looking at my cheat sheet. So in order for us to develop the wisdom, we need to learn something. And when we learn it, we need to memorize it. And then we need to understand it, not just memorize it. And once we understand it, we apply it. And that's where curiosity comes in. Curiosity enables us to go find learning more. A curiosity, a love of learning and judgment and having a different perspective understanding our perspective gives us that wisdom that gives us abilities like, that's how I see it, that's my perspective. And wisdom is going to tell me, other people might have different perspective. So it gives me the ability to accept other people's opinions and perspectives on the same thing that I'm seeing. So once we are able to understand it, we apply it, we analyze to improve, and then there we evaluate, and we are becoming more creative. That's the, when we are becoming more creative, we are able to create coming from the wisdom. And in terms of justice, we're talking about fairness, working in a teamwork, uh, and justice also comes in leadership. These are the aspects of justice that are within the intelligence quotient. In terms of emotional quotient or emotional intelligence, um, we need to be able, how do we be courageous? Courage is very important. How do we become courageous when with people if we're not honest? We can't. You have to be honest. Honesty, it requires courage, and courage requires honesty. Same thing with being brave, being perseverance, being taking care of, seeing things in a positive way, seeing things in a positive sense. All these things are is going to help us to understand our courage is coming and stemming from where, the source of our courage. And then our humanity, that's also from our emotional, being human. Uh, do we love people? Do we have love towards people? Do we have people that we love? Do we have kindness in our heart? Do we have that connection in the social work? That's all part of humanity. You see, in religion, and like if I use this example in Islam, God defines a human being as a social creature. Now we have so many research and out there that is really reaffirming that. So Muslims believe in that as a belief. They didn't have to have the evidence, but now the evidence is pointing to that belief is actually accurate. So our social creature, or our social intelligence is coming actually from that natural need of us being a human. So that's something that we need to be intelligent in. So we learn, so we are good at it. So that's going to help us to build that interpersonal skill that we need. And then we have the, being patient, being patient, being having that ability of delayed gratification, having that ability to constrain, to be temperate, to have this temperance about ourselves, to be able to self-discipline. That's really what patience, you can think of patience as that. So the self-discipline. So many religions out there, religious practices out there that teaches that as part of the spirituality. Many policies at work, at governments, they have these policies and rules and regulations and laws to ensure that temperance. But we're talking about here within ourselves, the things that are allowed outside, that is going to distract us from our intention, from our purpose, from our meaning, and from our engagement. We need to be able to delay that, or postpone it, or even cancel it if it's not important. So the ability to do that, all of these things under the emotional quotient, under the emotional intelligence. Now, in terms of the physical intelligence, is the endurance and having healthy habits. Now, all of these, that I just mentioned, going back, so the functional skills, the interpersonal skills, and the intrapersonal skills, those what is needed for us to have that productivity. So these are the skills that we need to learn, attain, and improve so we can maintain high productivity. So why do we need to have high productivity? Actually, it gives us a sense of satisfaction. It gives us a sense of fulfillment. Why? Because it actually it fills that intention because it's connected to that intention we had. So all of these activities, if they don't connect and they don't fulfill that intention, then the satisfaction is not there. The sense of fulfillment is missing. It's just money or time or just getting the output of that task. But there is no deeper, or I should say, a higher meaning of that productivity that connects it to the intention. All right, keep your questions, write them down. I'm more than happy to address them shortly. Any questions here? No questions? Are you taking any notes? Yeah? Good. You're not writing down any questions? All right. Is it that clear? Oh, good. I'm getting a lot of nods to say yes, it's clear. That's good. Okay. So when it comes down to interpersonal skills, these are the skills that you see many companies focus on: communication skills, critical thinking, managing your boss, time management, conflict management, positive attitude, how to maintain a positive attitude, positive intelligence, listening, office politics, negotiation, etc., etc., etc. Now, the interpersonal skills, if your intrapersonal skills are not in place, your interpersonal skills are shaky. They will not be as effective. That's why I'm not a big fan of training these skills without us understanding who we are. So if I have a communication skill, if I need to build that, I need to know what really works for me. Do I feel courageous to talk to my boss honestly? No. Well, then no matter how many skills of communication you learn, you ain't going to be able to practice it. So therefore, we work with that courageousness and we build it. We talk about self-esteem. We talk about self-confidence. We talk about self-sabotage sometimes, and we need to put that and treat it and heal it before we start putting this on top. We cannot put the interpersonal skills on top of nothing or on top of a shaky grounds. There's not enough intrapersonal skills. So we build intrapersonal and then intrapersonal, and then job skill goes on top of it. You can learn the job skills before, that's fine. That's what you do in school. That's what you do at work, or if you do trainings or hands-on jobs, you pick up the skills of fixing a car or something. And you don't have to go to school sometimes to learn it. You learn it from the mechanic that you worked under. So you have all that, but if you don't have this underneath it, the interpersonal skills, you can put also customer satisfaction, customer service. That's another interpersonal skills, and that needs to be underneath it is the intrapersonal, the internal part of you that needs to be developed as well. So when we have all that, it makes us really much happier and more productive at work, at home, and able to face any challenges and so forth. So regardless of the environment, regardless of the time and the task, as long as we are developing ourselves, what I said earlier, that we are in control of that. We can develop that. We can make a decision that I want to develop myself intrapersonally. And then I can develop myself interpersonally because I already have the functional skills. I already found my job. So working from home, you see, if you are able to practice what I just mentioned before, your happy works, you will be able to have a happy workplace regardless where you work. So I just want to mention here, so whatever applies at a workplace applies at working from home. However, working from home has a few challenges. So I want to talk a little bit about those challenges. So you're not able to collaborate and communicate easily when you are working from home. People might have different schedule that you don't know who they are, but the collaboration, you cannot just walk into someone's cube or go into someone's office and just talk to them and collaborate with them and easily communicate. You have to type, you have to book a meeting, you have to see if they're available and all that. So you're not in a close proximity where they are. So that's a challenge. So the way around this, to work around collaboration, you just plan it ahead, and you can have your day filled with collaboration if you plan that ahead. So you can think today that tomorrow you're going to be working with this. You need to work on this task, and that task. You need to have few people to collaborate with. You just plan that, or in advance, or a week before, or a few days before. So sometimes another challenge working from home, you feel lonely. You're lonely. You don't have any colleagues. You're not going out to lunch with your colleagues to talk about work. You're having lunch alone. You're working alone. You finish job alone. You don't have to tell anybody good day, have a good weekend. You don't know what's going on with people's social life. You're not sharing your social life with them, and that brings us to that sense of loneliness. Well, you can, being online again, as you can plan the collaboration, you can plan these chit chats within the collaboration. So you talk like a minute or two before the meeting, have it done on a social level and a personal level. It kind of improves that, sense of loneliness. Not being able to unplug. There is not really a time where they shut off the lights. It's like, okay, everybody has to leave now or something. So you find yourself working more time, and that requires discipline. So you need to be fair to yourself. So having that discipline is really going to help you to be able to unplug from work. You need to set that time. That's it. That's going to be my last minute working, and then you unplug yourself. How am I doing with time? I'm going over time. Do you want me to stop now? Should I stop now, or should I continue? I just need about 5-10 minutes.
You can continue.
Should I go ahead and stop now?
You can continue if you wish. You
I
can
think
still, because there's a lot of things you want to talk about. Sure.
sure. I just have like a 5-10 minutes maximum. Just want to go over the challenges, and that should be done. Okay. So other challenges is the distractions at home, uh, being in a different time zone than teammates. Maybe they were on vacation, they got stuck in where they are, and they're not able to come to work. Motivation, you're not finding someone to work with you to motivate you. Taking vacation. How do you take vacation when you are in this pandemic? Finding reliable Wi-Fi. Sometimes the Wi-Fi can be a challenge to have a solid connection throughout the day. Sometimes we end up having bad habits because we're working from home, or that we have bad habits that we bring into our work from home. Could be like eating and talking, or sorry, eating and working, and you end up, gaining weight during this work from home time. Time management can be a challenge because you're managing not only your time and work time, but also your children and your family, or your friends, and as well as your social network. The pajama mindset, people go to work in pajamas. Well, that's good, but actually we found that people who go to work at home dressing up, they're more productive. They're able to produce more, and they are able to uh, be more satisfied in their job. So they change clothes actually after they done with the work from home. And also the limited networking. They're not able to network with other people. Well, that also can be managed proactively, that you can have little gatherings with people you invite, and you have you're able to network with different people that way. So knowing these challenges help us to proactively plan for them. So again, working from home, you learn the skills, you attain the skills, and you improve the skills. So a lot of companies now, after this pandemic, they're no longer having their offices. They're making their students, their workers, their employees to work from home. They found there's so much savings that they're doing. So this is not something that necessarily going to end up by end of this year. It might continue for decades from today. So therefore, you learn the skill, you attain the skill, and you improve the skill how to work from home. And it all stems from interpersonal and connecting it to interpersonal in in an environment of online environment. So that's the environment that we're talking about. So again, building blocks, you talk about the self-development and the within the self, within the surroundings, and then within, to improve your high productivity, and that's going to make your workplace as a happy workplace. And regardless where you do it at home, you do it in the office, and so forth. In order to adapt to work-life balance, um, so the balance, you cannot have it fully balanced. It's not something that you cannot have it all. You cannot have full home and full work. You need to be able to balance between the two. So in order for us to balance between the two, we need to learn and achieve wisdom about ourselves. We need to learn and achieve wisdom about our surroundings, learn and achieve wisdom about understanding the careers out there, choosing the right career for us, and then you will be able to know exactly what to do to be successful. Because many times what happens is that we know what to do, we're just blocked from doing it. So if we learn the step number 1 and 2 and 3, and those are clear, what to do is the easiest part, to be honest. And um, that's in relationship to balancing between work and life. And the last thing that I want to close with is, what do you do dealing with crisis and or work stressors? The first step is you need to stop. You need to stop. You need to pause. You need to stop what you're doing. You need to stop thinking about the problem. You need to stop thinking about all the triggers. You stop. Then, wrong mouse. Then you need to reflect on your purpose. What am I doing here? What's my purpose here? What is what's the meaning of this job? What is the why do I need to be even involved in this crisis? Or why do I need to even worry about this stressor? Why do I need to be part of this stress? And you need to regulate the emotions. That's the emotional quotient. The EQ is that we'll be able to regulate the emotions, and you balance your thoughts. So some thoughts like, oh, they're taking advantage of you. Oh, look, this is a toxic environment. They're always doing this to us and all that. So you need to balance these thoughts. And then again, once you clear your head, you stabilize your mood, you know exactly what needs to be done, because that is the functional skill that you already know. You already know how to do that. And that can be developed by um, um, skills that you develop, or by experiences. And some of if it's a stressful work, if you feel stressed, these are stressors, or these are events. But if it's the work is stressful, or you feel stressed, you need to evaluate: are you putting a lot of hours? You need to ask that self. You need to ask yourself that: are you are you overloaded with work? Is that reasonable? Do you have enough work for 2 people or 3 people? Are you not able to finish the planned works for that day? All these things that need to be answered. um, are you having difficulties to manage your energy? Your energy goes up and then you drain it. It goes up and then it gets drained. And so these are all things that you need to be able to, these are all indicators that the work you're doing is a lot more than what you can handle. That's what usually causes stress. Um, so by improving your uh, interpersonal skills, time management, negotiation, communication, all these things are going to help you here. And as I said before, interpersonal skills cannot be on shaky intrapersonal. So by building your interpersonal skills, you are able to stabilize the stress. Now, if you are working and your spouse is also working, that's a double whammy. How can you both work and be happy at the same time? That's also another interpersonal skill that you need to develop. So there's a lot more. I'm more than happy to expand more on this in different future talks. But for now, I'll stop here and see if they have any questions online or in person from the team. And you guys can go to relationary.com, PEC, to give feedback on this talk. I'm more than happy to receive everybody's feedback and for us to always continually improve. Relationary.com, PEC. Thank you. I'm done. So any questions online or in presence here people have?
All right. I do have some questions
Sure.
regarding to because you spoke about how from within ourselves, in order to find the work that we love doing, it has to have meaning. So, how do you find that meaning in your work? And if you sort of think you found it, how do you know that you had found it? What's the basis
Oh,
on that?
interesting. So that's where when we have the meaning, it kind of clicks with our passion. So we develop that passion. If we see ourselves like getting so excited in the morning that today I am going to help people to fly. Let's say that you're a flight attendant. I'm going to help people to fly to see their loved ones, and so that is going to bring that passion, that excitement, that energy. So all these are indicators that you already found it. Now, the meaning behind it. So what am I doing this? So the meaning is the intention. So what's my intention for me to make these, flights, for example, successful, to for people to see loved ones, or you know finish work, or whatever the case might be. So that means that I am fulfilling that. If you want to put it in a spiritual sense, if you want to make that intention spiritually, then that brings me that focus is that I am um, putting my effort and putting my time for the sake of Allah, for the sake of God, to make other people successful in their lives, to meet their own meaning in lives, and so on and so forth. So therefore I am fulfilling my small portion to make others fulfill their small portions and what it means for them.
All right. Okay, that's question one. Okay, so regarding to, I mean, finding meaning is not an easy thing to do actually because it requires you to go through with a lot of trials and errors and stuff like that, which is interesting to find out that if you want to do work, you need to have a certain meaning that you can place yourself, which is a great idea.
Yeah.
And so there's another question about productivity, which is because in order for us to be productive, we need to be able to control our environment. Am I correct?
In
Yes.
order for us to be productive, we need to do what? I'm sorry.
We need to control our environment. Yes, we need to
Hmm.
have a ability to control our time in a way. So there are certain cases out there where they have to deal with difficult bosses. So how do you deal with that?
There are
How do you deal
certain
with difficult
there are
bosses?
certain circumstances that we do what? I'm sorry.
Circumstances where we need to control our time.
Hmm.
We need to set a deadline. Because sometimes the deadline is a bit too fast, and you need to talk to your bosses. But sometimes you will deal with difficult bosses. So, is there any advice you would like to give when to people who wants to be able to set and control their timeline properly?
Right. So what I said earlier in terms of the environment, we don't necessarily control the environment, but we can influence the environment. We control ourselves. We can use that control of ourselves to influence the environment. So by sometimes pride hijacks us because we don't feel comfortable to tell the boss, I'm not able to do it. I cannot do it because it's not doable. Not because I'm not able to do it, because it's not doable. Some people fear, there's no courage. The courage also, you need to have good knowledge in order to have that bravery to say the honest, to be honest. You need to be supported with evidence, with knowledge, with facts. That boss, you're trying to build the twin towers in 2 weeks. That's impossible. I'm not going to do it. Right? It's not
Okay.
possible. So therefore, you just say, I cannot. You're being honest with yourself, and that's a risk. Only those who are strong in their knowledge and they have evidence to support themselves, so they're not sabotaging themselves. Actually, they are appreciating what they are capable of, and they are their best fan. They are the best supporters.
All right. Okay. So basically, we have to um, first do our ample research and proving that this thing is quite impossible to deal with, and then we try to communicate that as effectively to our boss without
Right, because
fear.
it's not an opinion. It's not an opinion that I cannot do it. It's based on facts. But sometimes we know the facts and we try to, what? I'm just gonna wing it. I'm just gonna do it. But that's where we sabotage ourselves, and that's where the quality suffers, and that's where we end up double the work, and it's just gonna be a bigger mess. But from the beginning, if we did our homework and we know that this is not possible, this deadline is not reasonable, boss. I can do this. You can give the boss options. I can do this deadline with the work you want me to do. I just need a bigger team. Can you give me more people? Can you reduce the scope of the project? Of this task. Can we make it like? Can we do it in phases? I can do this part by this date. The rest I can do it later. Would that be okay? Negotiation is very important. So that's the interpersonal negotiation skills. You need to have that, all of that. If you're not going to be having that courage inside you, intrapersonal, if you don't have that courage to negotiate, you're not going to negotiate no matter how many negotiation trainings you've tried or you finished or certifications that you had and you put in your resume. It doesn't make any difference. So have that courage from the inside to be able to present yourself fairly to yourself, to the other, to in the situation, and according to your spiritual guidance.
Well, that's not an easy task to have courage. You have to build it up, right?
Well, I
So,
mean, yeah, I'm using that as an example. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
all right. So we have a question from one of our viewers. So this is what it says. Good morning. Some curiosity in mind. For atheists or those who do not practice religion actively often, which might lead them to lesser spiritual dependence. Thus, when they are facing challenges, are they considered as low productivity? Since non-religious is their belief, which is a trait that cannot be easily changed, so how can they gain that spiritual resource that may increase productivity?
Okay, good question. So if you go back to my slides, I was not talking about religion. I was using religion as an example of spirituality. So atheists, they have a spiritual system. They have values and principles within the atheism, if you want to call it that way. So religion, so atheist, you can say atheism is a religion. So they have their own way to bring that identity, that purpose, that intention. So they are. It also applies to atheists. So I hope I answered that question properly.
All right. Now the question is, when you are being productive, you have no idea about the task at hand. Sometimes those things that you do can be a bit too much. So, regarding productivity, how do you know you are being productive or taking too much time on a certain task? Because there's no way of measuring it. So, how do you know if you're being
How do you
productive?
know that you're spending too much time on that task? How do you know you're
Yes,
productive? You're being productive in that task.
that's correct.
Okay, so every task needs to have an objective. If and every task, if you think about it, the objective, it has a certain outcome. It has a certain timeline, certain um, specifications of it. So as you are working on that task, you need to see how much of that specification of the task are you finishing. You're able to track. You're able to see how close are you to the deadline. Well, I'm only finishing 10%, and the deadline is tomorrow. I've been working on this for 3 days, for 3 weeks. But you know what? It's because of that 3 weeks was done. That was assumed that we had it, but I had to recreate it. So then you need to be mindful when you do the reporting of your productivity. It's like, guys, when we did this task, again, courage. You need to be transparent. You need to be honest. Like when we assumed this timeline, we thought that we had XYZ, but no, we ended up doing XYZ from scratch because we didn't have them, something like that, and therefore that explains the productivity. It's not like wasted, but the initial assumptions were inaccurate, and that's where we need to find, you know, productivity. If it's focusing on the objective, then you are productive. So what needs to happen in this kind of example, if the assumptions were wrong, then you don't do the work. You talk to the boss from day one. It's like, boss, when we did, put this timeline, we assumed tax XYZ were there, but they're not. What do you want us to do? So then you adjust the timeline, you adjust the scope, you adjust the objective earlier, not wait until the last minute and say, no, 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 we were working on this and that. Hopefully I answered that question.
You did. So I think that's all the questions we have. The talk about productivity is pretty interesting because you touch on not only on the fact that the things that you need to do at work, but you talked about the self and how you relate yourself to the working class itself. How do you
Absolutely.
actually find that? So that's
Yeah,
a very
human
interesting
capital
talk.
is the most important capital in any work. Yeah.
That's very true. So thank you very much for the interesting talk, Mr.
It's been a
Amar.
pleasure. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
All right. Okay. So now that we have fulfilled that part of the one of the sessions, another session will be by Miss Chua Yen Lee. She will talk about individual mindfulness. So wait for her to come out. All right. Here's Miss Chua Yen Lee. The floor
Hello.
is hello. The floor is yours. So you can begin now.
All right. So let me share my screen first. Okay. So thank you for inviting me for this talk. The My topic for today will be about healthy mind versus the unhealthy mind. So what I'm going to talk more is focusing more on the individual aspects of ourselves. And honestly, there is no clear-cut definition on what's considered a healthy mind versus an unhealthy mind. What I can tell you though is some of the things that can be important for us to reflect upon, to understand a little bit more about ourselves, then we can make whatever change that we need to foster a healthier mind. Okay. Um, One of the examples that I usually like to say to my interns, to my clients, to everyone is that we cannot solve maths if we don't understand the formula. So today we're just trying to understand what are the possible formulas that is out there for us to understand more about ourselves. All right. So let's talk about first what can be considered a healthy mind. Some of the things I like to emphasize first. I like all of us to care for our mental health like how we care for our physical health. For example, we make sure we eat, we drink water, we sleep. Can we do the same for our mental health? If you're doing this regularly, to eat, to drink, to sleep, some of us we exercise, some of us we hang out with friends. If we can do all of this for our physical health, can we regularly do certain things for our mental health? Right? We cannot just expect our mind to be healthy. We need to have some actions for that. Some of the things I'm going to cover is self-care and self-compassion. And I'll explain more about what is this. It's a pretty interesting thing. And another thing is to be able to draw boundaries. We need to know when to say yes, when to say no. All right? And when we're able to do that, we won't be too overwhelmed, we won't be too overloaded by the situation around us. And lastly is to acknowledge our limits. In a sense that as much as I am a therapist, there are certain things that I need to know that I cannot do. As much as we are friends, we have certain things that we can do so much to our friends. As a daughter, as a partner, as a worker, we all have our limits. And it's okay to have our limits. It's good that we know what our limits are. Now, when we're able to do that, to practice self-care, self-compassion, being able to draw boundaries, to acknowledge we have a limit and that's okay, we would build a person that is much more resilient. Resilient in the sense that whenever I'm facing certain struggles, I can bounce back. Whenever I face any overwhelming situation, I can handle the stress because I know how to take care of myself. Okay? Now let's talk about, on the other spectrum, what can be considered as an unhealthy mind. One of the things I usually mention is that there's this peribahasa that we have is bersusah-susah dahulu, bersenang-senang kemudian. So we tend to work really hard first. When we go for exams, let's say for students, if there are any students out there joining us in this talk, we tell ourselves, it's okay, I don't need to sleep, I don't need to eat, I'll just keep studying because I have an exam the next day. So I'll just forgo sleep. What happens after that? We are damaging our physical health. Another aspect is we are increasing the likelihood of us getting burnout, right? So instead of telling ourselves, okay, I'll just work hard, push myself to get things done, and I'll forget myself right now, maybe I'll care for myself later, can we switch that to, okay, I am expecting that I'm going to be working hard because there's a project coming along, there's an exam coming along, and I'll make sure I'll take some breaks in between. All right. Now, the next thing is a person who has poor self-care and poor self-compassion. Now, bear with me. I'll talk more about that later. I'll explain really detail about it later. Okay. Let's focus on self. A lot of us, it is part of our culture to think about everyone else and we think about ourselves later. Same goes with the first statement that I said. And that, in a way, would make us feel confused as to what's the purpose of me doing all these things for so many people, and what's the importance of me being alive here? What is my purpose of life? What is the meaning? Like the previous speaker, he talks about the meaning of doing all the work around you. Now the next thing is, earlier I said being able to draw boundaries. A person who may have an unhealthy mind may have the tendency to not being able to define their boundaries. A technical term for it is having a locus of control. Okay, I'll talk more about this in the middle of this slides. Okay, so undefined boundaries, that means I don't really know what are the things that I can control, what are things that are within my responsibility, and what are things that I really cannot control. Lastly is inflexibility. That means, let's say I tell myself, this is me, this is how I've been living the principle, my life principle, this is how I have always been. And you're expecting me to change that, so you're telling me it's not effective. Well, I'm not saying that whatever principle that you have is bad. I'm saying that it has worked for you to a certain extent. Now, can we improve all these principles, this way of life that you have? Can we improve it a little more to help you to be continuously effective? Now, for us to be more flexible, again, for us to understand more about ourselves, to gain more awareness, to be more insightful about ourselves, to be able to reflect about ourselves, then we can make a change. Then we will feel much more flexible to say, I see there's a point for that, and therefore I would like to see what change I may make. All right. So if, let's say, a person has few of these things listed down, they are likely to have unstable emotions. Say, for example, someone who has crying spells, crying outbursts, someone who has anxiety attack, someone who is very irritable. They find it really hard to juggle these emotions. Some of the likelihood is because I tell myself, I'll just suppress all these emotions. I need to focus on my work first. So when are you given time to focus on yourself? These are the questions you want to take some time to reflect upon. What I said earlier, lack meaning of life. I do so many things about for the environment, for other people. Is that all there is towards my existence here? Next, burnout. Burnout is one of the most common thing that people tend to have. At the same time, people don't really understand. So when I talk about burnout, I'm not just talking about, okay, I work really hard at work. I've been working overtime and all that, therefore I get burnout. Yes, that could be one of the burnout. But we can also get burnout physically, emotionally, mentally, and socially. A lot of us, we got burnout socially because we are social animals. We really like to socialize. We find the importance, the need to connect with people. And with the pandemic, this privilege has been stripped away from us. So a lot of us feel like, oh no, what else there is to life when I cannot do the things that I usually do? And some of us, we get burnout in that sense. Okay? Depressed. In other words, feeling really low. Okay? I may feel depressed, but that doesn't mean I have depression. Depressed is another word of saying that I have a really low mood. I feel really low. I feel sad. So when it comes to burnout and feeling depressed, it's always important to have self-care, self-compassion, to focus on ourselves, to remind ourselves that there is still something important, valuable, and worthy about ourselves as an individual. One last thing, if we find ourselves not being able to take care of ourselves, if we can't take care of ourselves, how can we take care of others? Overall, we would feel there's this sense of dissatisfaction. I never feel satisfied. So, give you an example. Let's say we've been studying for at least a minimum 10-15 years of our life, right? From primary school up to university. And we're always chasing the mindset that is given to us by the society. We're always trying to chase for good grades, to be better. You got an B, you can be better. You got an A+, you can be better. You can be a number one in the class, you can be better. So we keep chasing for something that we cannot really define. What's considered really better? What if we already reached that state of being better, but we're still not satisfied? So when we're able to tone down, to pause ourselves and say, let's think about me. What about me? Eventually we start to feel like, you know what, I'm pretty satisfied about where I am. I'm pretty satisfied about what I have been doing. Okay? Now let's get to this good part. Now, I'll talk about two things and I'll expand more about this. First is self-care, first is self-compassion. As the word explains itself, self-care is, can I take care of myself? Self-compassion is, can I be kind to myself during difficult times? So a lot of us, we find it really hard to be kind to ourselves. Again, going back to the peribahasa before that, I work hard first. I tell myself it's okay. I push myself. There's no need to take care of myself. There's no need to sleep. There's no need to eat on time. That's not being kind to ourselves. So when we're not able to be kind to ourselves, what are the chances we can practice self-care? Okay? And these are the things that not just people who are struggling in mental health, but all of us can practice. This is one form of preventative measure to ensure that we have good mental health, to ensure that we have a resilient, a strong mental health. Okay? Now, let's talk about this thing called self-care baskets. I like this analogy, and I always explain it to everyone who is struggling about themselves. So all of us, we have a few baskets in our life, right? Usually with people, I just draw circles, but today I make it a bit nicer. I put an actual baskets there. So let's focus on the three to four baskets. Now we have a few baskets that we have in our life. We definitely will have one for self. We have one for work and study, one for family, one for friends. We can have other baskets. Some we put hobbies, partners, pets, so many other things that I cannot think of right now. But generally, we have self, work or study, family, and friends. Now, I'd like you to take the time to reflect, all of you to take the time to reflect, and ask yourself this question. How many percentage do I put in each basket? Now, each basket is out of 100. Each of it is out of 100. So take your time to think about it. When I talk about how many percentage do I put in each basket, it could be in a sense of how much focus do I put in each basket? How much effort do I put in each basket? So I'll give you an example, okay? A typical example. So I will put myself 20%. Work and study, I put 90%. Family, I put 60%. Friends, 55%. So on and so forth. Okay? Now, it's important for us to put the percentage. It gives us an idea about our view of our surroundings. Now, the one with the highest amount of percentage, in a way, it's saying that I identify myself as that basket. That means I'm not Yenli as a person, I'm Yenli as a student. I'm not Yenli as an individual, I'm Yenli as a worker. Let's see, from this example, the second highest is boyfriend and girlfriend. So I'm not Yenli as a person, I'm Yenli as a partner. So what this means is that I really put a lot of effort into work and study, right? I spend 10, 15 years studying. All I do is studying. I don't know anything about working or earning money. All I do is study, study, study. Now let's say if I fail an exam, because I put so much effort, I'm going to make sure this basket is as perfect as it can be. And out of the blue, I didn't do well as I expected. Oh no, what's going to happen? My whole basket will get shaken because I spend my whole life focusing on this basket. And if this doesn't work out, what am I then? I don't have this sense of self, this sense of identity that I have. And ideally, we want to be able to have a ground to stand on. By ground, I mean our self, the basket self. All right. This example is pretty typical, it's pretty common, that we put a lot of percentage to everything else and our self is usually lower. You've been surprised. Some people say, you know what? I think my self basket is actually 0%. When I ask them, are you sure it's 0%? They say, oh, okay, maybe 1%. So they really didn't take the time to think about themselves. If you don't take care about your mind, you don't take care about your body, who's going to do that for you? You are responsible for our own self, right? Yeah. So what we want to do is to reduce the gap. 20%, 90% is a huge gap, right? We want to reduce that. Now, let's look at it. Let's say hobbies. Hobbies is 40%. If, let's say, I used to be a hobbyist, say I like to play the guitar, and I haven't been doing that. I only put it 40%. So that didn't work out. So if that basket didn't work out, my basket will still get shaken. However, I won't get too overwhelmed. I won't get too disturbed because my main focus is still being a student or being a worker, right? End of the day, again, to remind you, we want to be able to go back to our self basket. As I do all these talks, and I call it psychoeducation, I like to use a lot of analogies. So another analogies I would say, we need to fill our cups. We cannot have an empty cup and keep pouring it to all these baskets. The moment I manage to collect a drop of water, I pour it into study. The moment I have 2-3 drops of water, okay, I pour it to family and friends. I didn't give it to myself. So if your cup is empty, how can you pour water to all of this? We need to fill our cup to a good amount that we are comfortable with. Then we can focus on all the other important aspects of our lives. Now, how do we increase this percentage of self, this 20%, right? This is where self-care comes in. Now, we can have so many self-care. Ideally, is for us to have like a set of self-care routine. And we can have just 1 or 2 to tens to hundreds to millions of possible self-care routine. And we don't need to do all of it at one time just because like, oh, I feel stressed, okay, I need to do all of this. We don't need to. As long as you can do 1 or 2 of those things, whatever that is within your capacity you can do, please do it. Now, I cannot tell you what are some of the good self-care, what are some of the things that you should practice, right? I'm not living your life, you're living your life. What I can tell you though is criteria to look up for on what can be considered as your self-care routine, self-care activities, right? So let's look at some of the criteria. The first things, what are things that I used to enjoy, but nowadays I find it really hard to bring myself to do it. This is very common for people when are feeling really stressed, when they're feeling burnout. Some of the definitions that my client used to say, or even I myself find resonate with this definition, is that I know I have things to do, but I cannot bring myself to do it. I would say it's a strong likelihood that a burnout may be happening. And because of that, things that I used to enjoy, I can't seem to enjoy it right now. But I know before I used to enjoy it. So list down what are those possible things. When we talk about things that we enjoy, we talk about doing all these things and I find myself being lost in the moment. Those are probably things that you really like. Another thing, let's talk about what are things that I haven't tried yet, but thinking about it sounds really exciting. Say, for example, I haven't been on a road trip with my friends before. Thinking about it feels like, wow, I would really enjoy it. Okay, can we plan for that? Or, you know what, I always go out with my family and friends. I never actually tried going out by myself. I know what is it like to go shopping by my own. I wonder what is it like to have dinner by my own. It sounds pretty interesting. I would like to try. Sure, you can try that as well. Now, some other few criteria to consider would be sorry, excuse me. Yeah. So some of the things that we want to see would be on a spectrum. So how much time will it take to do certain things, to things that we can do in the least amount of time to the most amount of time. For example, some of the things that I really like to do would be to watch a movie. But how much would watching a movie take? Minimum an hour. What about on the other end? Let's say I like to drink a cup of coffee. Okay, that wouldn't take no more than 5 minutes. Can I allocate 5 minutes for myself? So a lot of us, going back again, we tell ourselves, I don't have time, I need to focus on my work, I need to focus on my study. Okay, but can you spend about just 1 to 2 minutes just for yourself? Are you able to do that? Can I tell myself that it's no harm to just spend even 30 seconds for myself? Even just to do some stretching and all that, that's considered self-care already. Another thing to consider is how much effort does it need? Like in terms of steps, how much do I need to put to make sure I'm able to perform this self-care activity? So I'll talk in terms of two extremities again. In terms of drinking coffee, what do I need to do? Take my coffee, put some hot water, stir it, and I can drink it. On the other hand, ideally, part of my self-care is to go for a vacation. But is it really realistic for me to go for a vacation right now? I need to plan for the trips, the destination I want to go. Am I driving? Am I taking the plane? So on and so forth. There's a lot of effort, and I probably don't have the capacity right now. Now, you want to be mindful when we are feeling really stressed out, burnout, we feel really low, we're already feeling emotionally overwhelmed. Doing all this activity is going to take double or triple the effort. So let's keep it to the bare minimum, things that would take the least amount of time, least amount of effort. Lastly is how easy or difficult doing that activity would be. Okay? So take your time to reflect on what can be considered as my self-care activities. It could be as simple as I just feel like I like to go out and smell the fresh air. I just like to look at the window to see how beautiful the sky is. I feel like I just need to lie down for like a few minutes. That's fine. No one's judging. That is your life. Okay? Now, this one I find it really interesting. So earlier I talked about being able to draw boundaries, to acknowledge my limits. All this goes to our locus of control, or I call it the control egg. And I find this example versatile and I can expand it quite a bit. So this is our egg white and this is our egg yolk. Our egg white is external control. Our egg yolk is internal control. In other words, internal controls are things that is within my control, things that by right should be, I'm able to control it. External control is, as much as I really try to control it, it's going to be a bit difficult. I'll give you some examples. Things that by right should be within my control are my thoughts, my feelings, my behavior. Things that are not within my control is other people's thoughts, feelings, and behavior. And for example, weather. We cannot exactly control the weather, right? So let me give you an example. If let's say an exam is coming up, what is within my control? I'll study for it, go for tuition, checking out with people, watching videos, doing all these things to make sure I perform well. What is not within my control? Well, I cannot be 100% sure what's coming up for exam. As much as maybe back in my days, the lecturers usually give exam tips. Yeah, they can give tips. But still, I cannot 100% predict what's going to come out, right? And that is something that honestly, as much as we try to control it, not only we won't have an answer for it, we'll get really frustrated. Okay, now, there are a few kinds of eggs that people have. Some people have an omelet. That means I find the need to control everything, both internal and external control. And part of them doing this is because they don't like uncertainties. They want to make sure that I can predict everything. You can see some people, they like to have plan A, plan B, plan C, make sure everything is structured, organized, because they don't like uncertainties. Uncertainties makes them anxious. And on the other extreme, there are people who only has egg white. because egg yolk has high cholesterol. So what does it mean is that this person feels quite helpless, quite powerless, because I cannot control anything. Even my thoughts, my feelings, they're just everywhere. I can't seem to keep it in check. And I feel like, you know what, I cannot do anything about my surrounding and myself. So I like you guys to ask yourself, what does my egg look like now? I have a lot of interesting examples from my client. Some of them, they said, you have that scrambled egg, but you didn't scramble it properly. There's still some egg whites in it. In other words, they're saying that, yes, I try to control everything, but I still know there are certain external controls that are not within my control. There are some people who say it's like, when you crack an egg, you want it to be perfect, but somehow the egg yolk broke. That is how I feel. So in other words, I can define, okay, this is external control, this is internal control, but I'm feeling like I'm slowly losing control of the internal part. And that's not too bad. We just need to push the egg yolk back into closer to the circle there. Okay? Now, it's very hard for us to have a perfect egg yolk, like a perfect egg like this. This is like hard-boiled egg. It's really difficult. What I like to focus on is for us to be able to define, this is the egg white, this is the egg yolk. As long as we have that, I would say, well done. That's good enough already. That's more than good enough, because you know what is in your control and what is not in your control. So first ask yourself, what does my egg look like now? If I feel my egg is like scrambled egg, or some people said the half-boiled egg, telur paruh masak. That means I don't really know what is within my external control. At the same time, I'm still feeling a bit shaky and wobbly about my internal control. Okay, if that is how your egg look like now, second question, what kind of egg do I want to be in the future? So some of them would say, okay, so now I feel like I'm like a half-boiled egg. I like to be slightly more cooked, in the sense that I can define what is in my external control. And the internal control, once in a while, it's okay if it's runny. Once in a while, if it's a little bit overcooked, it's still okay, as long as I can define that. And if that is your goal, I would say, okay, we work towards that, we strive towards that. So going back to drawing boundaries, we need to understand there are certain things that are within our control. Again, earlier I said, being a friend, we have our limits. We like to help people. We like to make them feel good, all the kind of things. But at the same time, there's only so much we can do. My behavior is, okay, I would like to help my friend to make sure I get food for my friend. But that friend has their control and their decision, do I really want to eat the food? Or do I tell myself, no, I don't feel like eating the food? We cannot force ourselves. I cannot force our friend to say, hey, I buy you the food already, you better eat it. That is within their behaviors. Okay? So we need to acknowledge that we have our limits to certain things. And when we can sort of define, sort of see that, okay, I can see quite clearly there's an egg white, there's an egg yolk, we are already sort of drawing boundaries. Okay? Now, those are things that I like you guys to reflect on and to see where you are right now. Being able to understand about self-care, self-compassion, and locus of control can take you really far. Trust me. Now, I have a few reminders that I like you guys to ponder upon. First, as cliche as it sounds, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay that once in a while, as much as outside I'm a very smart person, it's okay once in a while I don't know certain things. It's okay that as a guy, we're not supposed to show emotions, but I'm feeling emotional right now in terms of sadness. It's okay to, as much as I'm always really strong, but nowadays I feel a little bit low, a bit weak. End of the day, we are all humans. We have our ups and downs. And it's good that we have ups and downs, because from the downs, we learn that, okay, this is what it's not good, and I want to be on the other end to be good. And being able to acknowledge that, yep, I'm not okay, is actually a form of strength, because we are being true to ourselves that, yep, I acknowledge that I'm not doing okay and I like to work on it. So that's strength, that's powerful. Second thing, moderation. What I mean by moderation is that we cannot be a person, for example, who has no anxiety at all, or we have a person who is extremely anxious. We try to go in the middle. That means, what I'm trying to say is that there are some clients who have really strong anxiety symptoms, and one of their goals is, I don't want to feel it anymore. I want it to be a 0. And I tell them, honestly, realistically, all of us need to have a good amount of anxiousness, because anxiousness pushes us to do things. All of us, we need a good amount of stress, because stress motivates us to work hard, to do good. We, once in a while, we have some sense of anger. There's a purpose to that. Every emotions that we experience, there's always a purpose behind it. Okay? And in terms of moderation, also, I don't need to be just because I didn't get full A's or straight A's for my SPM doesn't mean I am not smart at all. I am probably not so good in maths and science, but all the other subjects I'm doing pretty good. So we learn to reduce this black and white thinking. We learn to be in the middle. So that's what I mean by moderation. The third thing is, what was effective before might not work now. So I'll give you an example where, because we have been studying about 10-15 years of our lives, striving to get A. And we build a routine to make sure that we can get A. Going tuitions, working hard, planning, all that. Now what happens when we go to work? Are we still chasing A's? We're no longer chasing A's. We're probably chasing about, some of us is to earn money, to earn experience, to earn this and earn that. And whatever routine that we set before will not be as effective now. So sometimes we have some people who say, I used to be like this, but now I'm not. And that's fine, because we grow in terms of age, in terms of wisdom, and we can be flexible to tell ourselves that, okay, I used to be able to sleep for like 12 hours. It was really good. Nowadays, I don't sleep that much. And that is fine, because we are in different phases of life. So I tell myself, okay, I'll just tweak it a little bit. It's okay if I don't get my 12 hours of sleep 10 years back. I'm still okay with 6 hours of sleep, and I have a lot more other things to focus on. Hope that makes sense. Another thing is to acknowledge your feelings and to keep going to your destination. So let's talk about the feelings of anxiousness or fear, right? If we continuously to listen to our fears, or we tell ourselves that I don't want this fear to happen, I'm just going to avoid. Either way, we are not actually taking the time to sit down and acknowledge our feelings. Think of feelings like a third person. So I'm going to give you an analogy of you driving a car. If we have fear to drive the car, to be the driver, the road is not going to be smooth. Probably the car won't even be driving, because fear doesn't want to drive. But if I tell myself, okay, fear, you sit at the back seat. I acknowledge you're here. You can be in a car with me, and you can be at the back seat, but I'm going to drive. So I can have certain fears in my life, but that doesn't stop me from doing things or going where I want to be. Okay? The more we continue to focus that I'll continue to go to my destination, and fear is there. Imagine fear is being those road trip friends that like to speak a lot. And for me, being the driver, I need to focus on the road, right? So I can talk a little bit, I can acknowledge my friend behind, but I won't be talking all the time. Eventually, what will happen to that friend? Probably slowly fall asleep, slowly got quiet. And that's how fear would be as well. The more we focus on a task, we acknowledge, okay, fear is there, but I'll just continue doing what I'm doing. Eventually, the fear would become quiet. The fear will not go away, but at least tone down. Probably needs a nap for a bit. And with that, we find ourselves that we can still continue to do more things. The next one, to take preventative measures. It's the same thing of earlier when I said we need to care for our body like how we care for our mind. So we make sure we, let's say now it's the pandemic season, right? So we make sure that we be responsible, we didn't go to crowded places. If we don't feel well, we make sure we don't go to work. We take all these preventative measures. And we make sure we always eat healthy, don't eat too much fast food, all that kind of things, bring vitamin C to prevent that from happening. And I'll tell you more about preventative measure in the next slide. Now, number 6, the last one, seek help even when it's manageable. So I'll give you an example of physical health. When we get a sense of, when we feel a bit fever, do we tell ourselves, yeah, I'm feeling a bit feverish, but it's okay, I don't need Panadol, I'll just wait it out. Then my fever increased from 37 degrees, goes up to 37.5. I say, it's okay, I can still manage, I don't need Panadol. 38, 39, yeah, I'm feeling really hot, really, I'm having cold sweats, but it's okay, I don't need to take Panadol. Do we do that? No. Usually, when we feel a bit feverish, we pop Panadol. Feel a little bit headache, we pop Panadol. So can we do the same to our mental health? When we feel like, yeah, I feel like I'm quite overwhelmed, it's still manageable, but I still feel I'm quite overwhelmed, can we seek help? Seek help, I do not only mean seeking professional help in terms of counseling and psychotherapy, but to reach out to people to say, I'm feeling overwhelmed, can I delegate certain things to you? I'm feeling overwhelmed, would it be okay to have some company? So we do all this to keep ourselves in check. We don't want our fever to increase until we're burning and we get brain damage. We don't want that to happen. Okay? So there's this thing called shared prevention strategy that I created with a few classmates of mine. And I find this really easy to memorize. And I hope it will be helpful for a lot of you also. So SHART is an acronym for first, stay connected with those you feel comfortable with. Again, we are social creatures that we always find importance to connect to people. And when we stay connected, we feel fulfilled, we feel there's a sense of purpose, and we want to continue to do more good things in our life. Second, healthy and balanced lifestyle, both physical health and mental health. We need to balance that out. Have yourself some kind of routine. Active participation in favorite activities to keep mind fulfilled. This is where self-care comes in. As much as I know that I'm feeling really low, that doesn't mean I just need to lie down and YouTube for hours, use my social media for hours and not do anything. I can still do some small self-care activity. Moving on is relaxation exercise. So if I find myself feeling really stressed, body is really tense, do I need to do some stretching, some breathing exercises? Do I need to go for a massage? Anything to reduce the tension. Next is enlighten self with spiritual or religious activities for guidance and positivity. Some of us, when we feel that we are spiritually connected, we believe in God, we find that seeking to Him, praying to Him for guidance gives us some sense of comfort. And if that is you, go for it. Lastly, Discuss issue with family or friends before it gets worse. So you'll be surprised how just talking about it out, to just share this is what I'm struggling, blah blah blah. The act of just talking and releasing it out, it's a form of release already. If some people they don't have people to talk to, they write it down. Or they do like a voice recording. Whatever it is, it's like metaphorically, I'm releasing a lot of things down here out from my body. Okay, so these are things that you can try out to ensure that you keep your mental health in check. So the last thing I need to say, congratulations for making this far. You being able to be present with me until to this point, you're already taking a first step to a healthy mind. Because like I said earlier, we cannot solve maths if you don't understand the formula. So right now, this whole talk that I'm giving, you're understanding a formula. And whether or not you want to make a change or you want to understand more, that's completely up to you. But good job for staying with me and listening to me. So, are there any questions?
Hi. That was a really great presentation. Really love the idea of you using this um, analogies of an egg yolk and basket. That's actually
I know.
pretty interesting, and
Yeah.
it actually allows people to figure out what is how to categorize or have a place for certain aspects of their lives into this basket, and knowing
Mm-hmm.
their locus of control by knowing where are they in the egg yolk or how spread it out that egg yolk is. So, which is pretty
Mm-hmm.
amazing. So,
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it as well.
yes, I was listening quite profound and it's like, wow, that's really cool. So let's see if we
Mm-hmm.
have any questions.
Mm-hmm.
So we have here from Ken Kwan Kang. Hope I'm not butchering that name. So he says a really insightful thought. Thank you, Relationary and IMARET. Just a small question: is there such a thing as too much self-care? Example giving is narcissism. We could receive quite many psychoeducation of self-care. What should we do if that is the case? Good
That's a really good question. And in fact, I do know this person. This is one of our ex-interns. So I'm really glad that he joined the call. So KJ, yeah. So is there something considered as too much self-care? I would say it's not likely to have too much self-care because um, we are just taking care of ourselves. If you're talking about narcissism, we're talking about that person is doing something for the advantage of themselves. They have like a hidden agenda, underlying meaning to it. Self-care is just really the basics of I need to take care of myself because I need to be healthy. For people with narcissism or any other personality disorder, I am focusing on myself because there is an agenda that I want to achieve. Whether it's good or bad, I'm not one to judge. Yeah.
Right on. Okay, so that depends on your intention on how what is your motive for self-care, right? So some
Mm-hmm.
people want to take care of themselves because they feel a bit too much stress going on in their lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there is also that question whether or not it does lead to procrastination or does it lead to laziness and stuff like that. So I think
Mm.
that's one of the questions that's asked as well. So how do you know that you're not being, you know, you're not taking advantage of your self-care routine, so to speak?
Mm. Then
Yeah.
that is what that would be I'd say slightly different. So when it comes to procrastination and laziness, then we want to look if there's something that's not so fulfilling in your life. For example, I imagine an example of procrastinating and laziness is I'm just lying down playing my phone. I just don't want to do it. So I'm not actually taking care of myself because for a healthy mind, I'm just spending time on the phone to keep myself occupied. I enjoy, of course, using social media. It's very addictive. But that one, it's a really fine line on whether is it self-care or I'm just distracting myself. I like to take this opportunity to also say that procrastination is one of the traits of possibly feeling overwhelmed and feeling burnout. Because again, I know there are things that I need to do, but I just feel like I cannot bring myself to do it. Therefore, in the public's eye, why are you procrastinating? Why are you so lazy? But deep down, you're probably struggling.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I guess that depends on really you can't really judge a person just because they're just not doing anything doesn't mean they're not stressed. Maybe they have
Mhm.
internal struggles, that's right. So that's a very good way of putting it. Very good. So
Mm.
that's another question is that because you talked about how you want to take care of yourself, you need to learn how to be flexible. So how do we teach ourselves to be more flexible in the things that we do? Because sometimes we have this mindset of this has to be like the eight yolk
Mm.
analogy, like everything has to be set here and the rest is like out there. So how do
Mm.
we teach ourselves to be able to stretch to that realm, so to speak?
Mm. Good question. This is where I would challenge the person. I can challenge myself by asking this question. How effective has it been for me? So I find myself, you know what? Let's say, um, let me think of an example. Let's say to get to a destination, we're driving to get to the destination. There's a highway. I tell myself, you know what? I want to use the usual route that I usually use, all the small roads. There's like offset all the jalan-jalan kecil, right? I
Yeah.
tell myself, I prefer that. And we said, okay, but highway is much more faster. You get to your destination faster. How effective has that been? It takes a long time. I'll go through all the traffic lights and all that, probably jam here and there. But yeah, I prefer that. And I said, okay, but at the same time, would you be able to get to your destination or would that prolong? Would that destination would be even further? And then I can also challenge, is there a reason for you to continue to go to all those small roads? Because every time, or most of the times, when we find ourselves sticking to certain things, as much as it's bad, we know it's not so helpful, but we still stick to it because there is still a function. So, what is the function? Maybe as I drive through all these small roads, I enjoy the scenery more than the highway. I gotta stop by to go to what do you call that? The different kampongs, they have their own local stuff. I like to see that before getting to my destination. If that is your goal, then I would say that's fine. I'll give you an example in terms of drinking. When we drink, we know it's not good. Everyone publicize it as drinking is bad, you get addiction and all that. At the same time, drinking has a function. I know it's not good. I know after that I'll get hangover and all that. But one of the function is when I drink, I get instant gratification. I feel the high, my mind is quiet, and I like that. So if that is the purpose, that I want to have my mind quiet down, can I help you to find a different alternative? There's other ways to get this quiet mind aside from just drinking. So when I'm able to challenge that, then I would slowly tackle this inflexibility that the people may have.
All
Make
right.
sense?
So makes sense.
Mm.
Basically, just show them the doors, and then if this
Mhm.
doors might work, maybe we could give it a try. That kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah. like a highway. All right. All right. So now we talk about, let's go back to the analogy of the egg yolk, when you have this controllable side and the uncontrollable um, factors out there. So when you are out there, you sometimes are influenced by other people, and you want to try to find out that border between the self and the influence out there. So how do you differentiate yourself, making that decision, and then having that external effect? Telling you, okay, this is what this person saying, and this is not what I want to do. Say, for example, you desire to go into, let's say, in the field of engineering, right? But your parents are telling you that it's not good for you because it don't make money. I mean, engineering does make money, but just in case, like sort of like that. How do you set that boundary between that?
Okay, I'm trying to understand your example better. So someone is telling me to study engineering. I want to study engineering, but the people around me says that it's not good
Mm-hmm.
or it's not for you.
Yes.
Okay, so then this would go back to understanding or to figure out what is my sense of identity. Going back to the self-care basket, how do I define myself? Am I just a student? Am I just a worker? Or am I an individual, a woman of myself? Right? So this is a personal example. I have already the interest to study psychology, but the people around me says, you know what, with your grades, study accounting, be a lawyer, all that kind of things. And there's actually one relative of mine that says that if you study accounting, I'll sponsor the whole program for you. And I said that, well, what if I want to study psychology? Because I know psychology is me, it's what I want to be. And said, yeah, if that's the case, then I won't sponsor you. So because I have quite a good sense of self, I remember telling my family that I can't study accounting with the fact that I will not be happy. And I know my sense of self that I want to be happy. I want to look forward to life. I want to enjoy life. So therefore, it's okay. I'll take the student loan. I'll study psychology. So before we can really define this sense of control, we need to define a sense of self first.
Actually, really good. That's actually put things into perspective. Like, I guess in order to find yourself, like a lot of students, especially when they just finish and graduate high school, a lot of them tend to not know the self. So I think that's one of the reasons why they ended up working in places where it doesn't make them happy because of
Mm-hmm.
expectations. So, which is a good thing to actually put it out there, saying that you should know yourself, especially if you're in high school. That's the best place
Mm-hmm.
to start.
Yeah.
And if you're
So,
out there and stuff like that.
yeah.
So,
So
which
if
is
I
really good.
may add on to that, that's why they always have like a career fair and all that kind of things. It helps you to give you an idea where your interest lies. So we also at the center here we do career assessments. We help the client to see which area might be your interest. Are you more towards the mathematical, analytical kind of person, or are you more of a social, artistic kind of person? And from there, we help to figure out your pathway. Where do you think would be more of your style? End of the day, me being a therapist, I'm only a facilitator. And okay, I'll give you an example. I'm only the GPS. The client would tell me where they want to go. They don't know how to go there, but they know this is where they want to go. So I'll say, okay, I'll be your GPS. Once in a while, you missed a turn. It's okay. I'll help you to redirect. I'll recalculate, and we'll go back to your destination.
All right. That's that's a really good analogy. That's a really good analogy. So,
Thank you.
is there any more questions from the viewers? Anything else you guys want to ask? I guess not. So I guess that's it. So thank you so much for sharing with us the idea
You're
of healthy
welcome.
mind and the unhealthy mind,
Mm-hmm.
and sharing as well as all of your analogies, and I think put things in perspective. I think if they replay this video, I think they would help them being able to find out exactly which basket they fill in and which part
Mm-hmm.
of the things are scrambled and maybe make a new eight.
Mm. Yeah.
So, all right. Thank you very much for joining us,
Yeah.
everybody.
Thank you for inviting me. And um, I just like to add on that all the things that I shared, take it with a pinch of salt. I'm not saying that you need to change whoever you are right now. Definitely, the things that you're doing right now, it has a function, and you brought yourself up really good. And I'm only giving you perspective to see would you want to make it better. If you can, then there is a way. And everything you do right now, there's nothing specifically bad about it. It's just not so functional, not so effective.
Right, right. I hope they get that grain of salt and put it in their eggs. I don't know.
Mm.
So thank you.
Put a little bit of
So
pepper.
just a little bit pepper, yeah, the spices. All right, yeah. So thank you very much for sharing that. I
Thank
think
you,
it
Rizwan.
will be amazing if people would take that advice and put it into their
Mm-hmm.
lives and stuff. So thank you
Mm-hmm.
for joining us.
You're
And
welcome.
all right, ladies and gentlemen, finally we have come to the end of all the series, and I hope you guys had learned something, and if not, and if you guys came in late, it's okay. This whole video, this webinar will be posted back again on Relationary and as well as IMARET's Facebook page. So you guys can actually join in and just listen ahead and probably get something more out of this. Probably something we're missing. You can just dial us up, talk to us, and let us know what you think about this. And I would also like to say thanks again to all the presenters who's actually out here talking about the importance of taking care of the self, taking care of your relationship with the world out there. So I hope you guys are great and feeling great about yourselves now. Maybe you could find a way for you to deal more effectively with things in your life. So hopefully it will be beneficial for everybody. And please follow their FBs, Relationary, follow our FB, Imaret underscore my, the Instagram. So, and thank you so much for your attention. I hope you're going to have a very good day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for watching.